Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be looking at the X and Y on format. Now we don't actually know if there is going to be an X and Y on format. It hasn't really been confirmed, but it's pretty obvious that it's going to be an X and Y on format. So today we're going to be taking a look at all of the cards we are going to be losing from this format, and we are going to look at how it's going to affect the game and how it's going to affect the format as a whole. So the first card we're going to be... Oh, crap, I spelled that wrong. The first card we're going to be losing is Landorus EX. Now, this is the most biggest EX I think we're losing, because Landorus, ever since it came out, was a very dominant card. Hammerhead is a very, very strong attack, and when you pair that with strong energies and muscle bands and fighting stadiums and just Machamps and bats, it's a very strong attack, and this is just a very, very good EX. It's seen play for a very long time, and it's really going to suck to lose the big fighting type attacker of the game. Next up, we are going to be losing is Dusknoir. This card is actually going to be a pretty decent loss, because Sinister Hand is probably one of the best abilities in the game. It just, you can move damage around, and it was great for controlling a lot of games and a lot of situations. And losing Dusknoir is going to be pretty big. And you know, we do have the Meowstic, but it was better when it was an ability. And losing Dusknoir is really going to hurt a lot, in my opinion. A lot of decks aren't going to have that free control anymore. A small card we're going to be losing is Skyla, which, whoops, I forgot to, I'm an idiot. One card we are going to be losing is Skyla. Wait, what? Oh, whoops, I have the filter on. Okay, but yeah, we are going to be losing Skyla. Now, this card, it's seen less and less play now, because it is a little slow, because it technically, yeah, it's your supporter for the turn, but you can't play that second supporter for draw support. So Skyla has dropped down in play a little bit, but losing it is going to be a little bad for some decks. I mean, maybe, you know, like I said, it has died off in play recently, but losing Skyla is definitely going to be a card that will be missed. Pardon me. Another card we're going to be losing is Computer Search. Probably one of the biggest cards we're going to be losing is because it lets you just search your deck for any cards you want at the cost of discarding 2 cards. And Computer Search has made a big impact on the game, in my opinion. And it made big impact on a lot of decks. Just being able to get any cards you want at the cost of discarding 2 cards is very, very good. And losing Computer Search is really going to hurt a lot. Pretty much most decks play Computer Search as their ace spec card. The next card we're going to be losing is Blastoise. I keep forgetting to do that like an idiot. But yeah, the next card we are going to be losing is Blastoise. You know, Blastoise, it has been around for a very long time as a very, very strong card, because we saw it play a lot with Keldeo. Losing Blastoise is going to suck for a lot of water decks. Some water decks may not be able to, well, run now. I mean, yeah, we are losing the Keldeo, but at the same time, losing Blastoise, it's going to slow down a lot of water decks, and I feel like the only water deck that will be played is Primal Kyogre. So losing Blastoise is going to suck for a lot of water decks. And then, whoops, I spelled that wrong. Next, we're going to be losing is Keldeo. This is probably a very, very big loss. Keldeo is a very good EX. You know, rush in, just once your turn, if it's on your bench, switch it with your active Pokemon. Secret Sword worked really well with Blastoise. That ability is very, very big, and losing Keldeo is going to suck, especially for metal decks. A lot of metal decks are going to be extremely weak now. Like, decks that revolve around Dialga EX, I don't even think are going to be that good, because losing Keldeo is just a huge loss for those decks. And yeah, so unfortunately Keldeo is going to be gone, and a lot of decks are going to hurt. We're also, from Plasma Storm, going to be losing is Colress. Colress is by far now one of the best supporters, just because a lot of decks play Skyfield now, and Colress is a great card for those decks. And Colress has always been a great card just because you can shuffle your hand in your deck. You can draw up to, well, until Skyfield got printed, you could draw up to like 10 cards. But now that Skyfield's in the format, you could draw up to 16 cards, which is nuts. And, you know, losing Colress is kind of going to suck, because a lot of decks are going to be a little slower now that Colress is gone. And I'm kind of upset that Colress is leaving, because I think it's a really good supporter, and it is going to suck to lose it because it just allows you to draw so many cards. We're also losing Bicycle. This card saw some play last year, and now it's not really seeing much play anymore, but back then it kind of saw some play because, it's a decent card. It's just basically an Electrode magnetic draw into an ability and into a trainer card, sorry. So, losing Bicycle, maybe some decks do like Bicycle. The next big A-spec is Dowsing Machine. This card is another great A-spec. Some people prefer this over Computer Search. In most situations, it is a little better than Computer Search, but losing Dowsing Machine is going to suck. Some decks that need the item cards that don't have Trump anymore, they're definitely not going to like the Dowsing Machine loss. So losing Dowsing Machine is going to hurt some decks that actually rely on Dowsing Machine instead of Computer Search. Now, by far, one of the biggest cards we are going to be losing is Hypnotoxic Laser. This is probably one of the best cards in the game. It's an item card that basically you just play it, and then bam, they're poisoned, and you can put them to sleep. This card is going to be a massive loss. Like, a lot of decks are going... it's not going to be a massive loss, but it is going to hurt because that Laser Verbank combo is just so good. And the fact that we're losing Verbank City Gym and Hypnotoxic Laser is going to suck because some damage output decks aren't going to be as, strong as they once were. So losing Dowsing Machine and Hypnotoxic Laser is a massive loss for the format. We're also losing Lugia EX from Plasma Storm. It was a great card for decks because, with Deoxys, and now we're seeing like a Shaman Lugia deck see some play. So losing Lugia EX does suck because, it was a very strong card. And, maybe Outcast, the streamer might actually be upset because he does play a Plasma deck. But, yeah, Lugia, it's going to suck because some Plasma decks, we're losing Plasma as a whole, but you get my point. We're also losing Cobalion EX. This is another pretty big loss in my opinion because this is one of the better metal type attackers. 1 for 30 and you discard a special energy. That could be anything. That could be that could be that DCE. This is another good card to counter Toad decks, and it's gonna suck to lose Cobalion because it's a pretty decent card. And like I said, losing Cobalion is kind of bad because I actually thought it was a pretty good card just because of the ability to remove that energy. Another card we're going to lose is Donphan, and this is a big loss in my opinion because Donphan decks are very popular. And, it's a simple card. Stage 1, spinning turn, just you get the point, strong energy, muscle band. Losing Donphan is basically going to remove that whole Donphan deck as a whole, but we're also losing another card in the next set, which I'll get into just a minute. But Donphan, losing it pretty much eliminates Donphan decks as a whole. Another smallish card we're losing is Klinklang. Oh, wait. Clang. I think I have to type in Clang. Yeah, we're losing Klinklang. This card is kind of big because it is a pretty good card for metal decks because it pretty much makes metal type Pokemon unable to be damaged by EXs, which is pretty big. And, losing Klinklang is going to hurt some Bronzong based decks, so yeah, we're losing Klinklang, so some Bronzong decks are going to suck. Another massive card we're losing is Zubat. Not this Zubat, or not that Zubat, even though it's not even Zubat, so I'll play. Not this Zubat, even though it's not a thing. We're losing this Zubat. This is the best Zubat. Even though it's a little weaker, that ability is extremely, extremely good for Crobats. And losing this Zubat is going to hurt because now Bats may not see as much play just because they're losing that Zubat that gave them that had that free retreat. So losing Zubat will suck. Moving on to Plasma Freeze, we have Absol. Just, a small card, It hasn't really seen much play recently, but, losing Absol, it's another decent Dark-type attacker to play with, like, Evoltalt decks. So, losing Absol is a little bad. Another big card. Since we're losing Plasma as a whole, we're kind of losing the whole Deoxys thing. And Deoxys was a great card for Plasma deck. Pretty much, if you played a Team Plasma deck, you had to play Deoxys. It's just an amazing card for those decks. And losing Deoxys is going to suck because Plasma decks, well, they're going away as a whole, but like I said, Deoxys, just another great card Plasma decks played. And we're also losing the Thunder CX that, Plasma decks played. And, oh, well, it's going to take a while to find the Thunder CX, it looks like. But yeah, losing Thunder CX is going to hurt. Now, we have their replacement Thunder CX, but that's not as good as this one. This one was great for Team Plasma decks, but now that we're losing it, we're losing Plasma as a whole, like I said, but Thundurus and Deoxys are going. Another very big card that we're losing is the eggs. You know, Execute Propagation was a very, you know, great ability now with Skyfield and Empoleon and whatnot. And, whoops. We're losing this guy, too, Executor. You know, Blockade has seen some play recently, you know, with Ross Cawthon's deck. But, you know, Trump's gone. But, you know, we're still losing the eggs, which is massive. Because Skyfield decks really need these Executes. And losing eggs is going to suck. We're also losing some gold cards, if you want to call it that. The first one we're losing is Empoleon. This card is pretty big because of, you know, it allowed Empoleon to still see play because it got reprinted in Plasma Freeze. And, you know, we saw with Archie's Ace in the hole. Losing Empoleon will suck because it was an amazing card. It was just one of the better attackers in the game. And, you know, losing it is going to suck. And, you know, another gold card we're losing is the Gold Sigilif. You know, we do have it in, in Legendary Treasures, but losing the Gold Sigilif will suck because this card was pretty good. And, you know, Safeguard is a great ability, and, you know, it was in a basic, which made it even better. And, you know, losing that Sigilif is going to suck. And what other, I'm trying to see what other gold cards that we had in here. Because I know there were a lot of other gold Pokemon that came from Plasma Freeze that I think were pretty good. Oh, yeah, we're also losing Electro just because Magnetic Draw was a pretty decent ability. You know, some decks played it instead. We're losing Gold Garbodor. You know, Garbodor was reprinted in Legendary Treasures, of course, but we had the Gold Garbodor, which is a sick artwork. And, you know, unfortunately, we're losing the Gold Garbodor now, which kind of does stink. And we're also losing Leafeon, which is pretty big because this card is a great card to counter Seismitoad sometimes. And, you know, it's seen play with Raichu and Skyfield. Pardon me, and it will suck to lose this Leafeon because I've always liked this card just because I always thought it was a pretty good card. And, you know, unfortunately, Leafeon is going to leave the format. Yeah. And another pretty big card we're losing that's actually, well, maybe not as bad as you would think, but we're losing Mr. Mime. This is a very good card. Bench Barrier is an amazing ability that pretty much allows decks that hit the bench. Not like Crobat and stuff, but those decks can't even use those attacks to the bench, which hurts them a little bit. And losing Mr. Mime will suck, and, you know, damage output decks like that aren't really going to be as popular. You know, we're not really going to see many spread decks, but, you know, losing Mr. Mime is pretty big because this was a very good card. And, you know, it is going to suck to lose that ability to protect your bench. One of the biggest cards we're losing in this set is Floatstone. One of the better tool cards. It just gives that Pokemon free retreat. Steel decks are going to hurt. Hit and switch decks are almost going to be unplayable at this point because of the loss of Floatstone. You know, losing Floatstone is pretty bad for a lot of decks, and it is going to hurt a lot of decks, losing this Floatstone. And I hope they reprint it, because I think Floatstone is a must in the format. Like, I just think it's just such a good card that I think that it has to stay in the game, in my opinion. And, you know, the last card we're losing is Kyurem. You know, this card was played with Plasma decks, but it's also seen play with Mega Manectric, and losing it will suck because it was kind of another version of Landorus EX, if you want to call it that. And we're also losing some other cards from this set, too. I just remembered. Whoops, I didn't mean to press that. Oh, what am I doing? We're also losing some pretty stuff that got reprinted. The first one is Max Potion. We're losing Max Potion, and that's going to suck. I don't know if they're ever going to reprint it or not. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But, you know, losing Max Potion is going to suck a little bit. We're also losing Juniper. And, you know, we're obviously going to lose Juniper, but we're going to lose that sexy Full Art. And I'm actually holding a Full Art Juniper in my hand in real life right now. And it does suck to lose the Full Art Juniper because, I mean, Juniper is an amazing card. We do have Sycamore, but Sycamore does not have a Full Art. And I really hope they do make a Full Art Sycamore. I mean, they need to, in my opinion. Moving on to Plasma Blast. We are losing Silver Bangle. And this is another big card. This was a great card for decks that, you know, you didn't even need to play Muscle Band. You could just play Silver Bangle. And, you know, it was a nice way to deal extra damage to those EXs. And, you know, it is going to suck to lose this Bangle. I really hope they reprint Silver Bangle. I think that it is a necessary card to stay in the format. In my opinion, anyways. And, yeah, we are losing the Silver Bangle. And the most obvious card we're losing from Plasma Blast is Virizion Genesect. You know, we're losing the Virizion EX, which is pretty big for, you know, some decks. that did rely on Verdant Wind, but, you know, Virizion Genesect is going to be gone now, which means that, you know, maybe some decks that are weak to grass could see play again. It is going to suck to lose this, but we do have another Energy Excel attacker in the form of Mega Sceptile, which is coming out soon. But yeah, we are losing the Virizion Genesect, which is kind of big because it was a very good deck, you know, G-Booster, Virizion Genesect, and it's going to suck to lose one of the biggest decks in the game. We're also going to be losing Jirachi EX, and however, this may not be as bad as a loss as you think, just because Jirachi EX, you know, Stellar Guidance is a great ability, but now we have Shaman EX to replace that, and kind of neutralizes Jirachi as a playable card, but like I said, losing Jirachi is going to suck, because some people still prefer Jirachi over Shaman, and some people will still play Jirachi regardless. You know, we're also losing Suicune in this set, another really nice card because of Safeguard, and it is going to suck to lose Suicune because now it's not going to be as effective against EXs. Moving on to Legendary Treasures. The first card we're going to look at that we're losing, whoops, I didn't even type that in right, is Darkrai. Darkrai is going, whoops, Darkrai. I thought Rai would work, but again, oh my god, I cannot spell Darkrai's name right for the life of me. But we are losing Darkrai EX, which is going to hurt Yveltal EX a lot. Yveltal EX isn't going to be that good now with the loss of Darkrai. Dark Cloak is a great ability for those decks, and even Night Spear isn't that bad of an attack. And it is going to suck to lose Darkrai because it was a pretty good card. And, you know, Yveltal EX decks aren't going to have that free retreat anymore, which is going to suck. And we're also going to be losing Emboar, which is another big card we're losing. So now we do not have that energy acceleration for fire types anymore. So Camerupt EX is pretty much going to be useless. Losing Emboar is actually going to suck, because it just gave those fire decks a lot of power, and it does suck to lose this Emboar, because now those fire decks won't have that big energy acceleration. We're also losing Terrakion. You know, this card, it's another good fighting type card to play for fighting decks, and, you know, it is going to suck to lose Terrakion. And, yeah, so, you know, Terrakion's going to be gone. You know, fighting decks won't have that revenge attacker anymore. Another card that we are going to be losing, whoops, is Zoroark. And, you know, Zoroark, you know, did see some play with Yveltal, and I could see it still seeing play with Skyfield Yveltal. But yeah, it is going to suck to lose Zoroark, because if I can even find it. But, yeah, we are losing Zoroark, which does hurt Yveltal decks, because some people do like playing Zoroark a little bit, because it's not a bad card to play, because Brutal Bash is a really good attack with dark decks, and, you know, losing Zoroark might hurt, you know, Yveltal decks. We're losing Mew EX, which is another pretty big card that we're losing, because this is a very popular card with Night March decks, and it will hurt because some decks may not have that fun ability of being able to use those attacks for Mew, if that makes any sense. Like Doublade and Night March and Shedinja, they're not going to be as good because we are losing Mew EX. One of the biggest cards we're losing is Mewtwo EX. It's actually pretty sad to lose this card, because this is one of the best EXs, and, you know, ever since it came out, this is pretty much the first EX that was really popular in this game, because it was Mewtwo EX, and losing Mewtwo EX does suck, because that X-Ball was nice, and it was just a really good card, and it still sees play. You know, we do have Lugia EX coming out, but it's not a Psychic type, and it's not Mewtwo EX, and it just sucks to lose Mewtwo EX. Like, this card has seen play really since the dawn of EXs, and it is going to suck to lose the granddaddy of all EXs, so, you know, Mewtwo EX is going to be gone. Some other big cards we may lose is Reshiram / Zekrom. Just a card that's been around forever. I mean, now we technically do have the replacement Reshiram, which does have that Turbo Blaze ability, but we didn't have that Reshiram that had that Blue Flare and Outrage, and, you know, losing the Outrage thing might be a little bad for some decks, but I mean, you never know, but losing Reshiram does suck. We're also losing Zekrom, you know, another nice counter to Yveltal, I guess. We do have this Zekrom with Energy Stream, which is a pretty decent card, but it's just, it doesn't hold up to the power of the Outrage Zekrom. So yeah, those are all the cards that we are going to be losing. That does not count promo cards. I'm not going to count that, because we are losing N in the promo and stuff like that, which is pretty big. This was a very long video, but, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and, you know, we just went over basically what we're going to be losing from the format and the rotation, and how it's going to impact the game. And, yeah, we're going to be losing a lot of big cards, so, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you guys later. And if I did miss any cards that you think we're going to be losing, please leave it in the comments below.